Let's see what it looks like when I crack open a LaCroix right in front of the microphone. Oh, yeah, it's all red.
I tried to take out a page out of your book and find a Goyaki at 7-Eleven. They don't carry that.
Dude, I've switched brands on the yerba mates. I'm on a brand called Clean Cause. I think they're made by Christians. Some amount of profit goes to help people get clean.
Oh, get off drugs.
And you know how I support sobriety.
Yeah. I feel judged whenever I drink around you, and that's good.
Do you?
Not really. Whenever I drink around you, I'm like, Wah thinks I'm anesthetizing myself because I'm too weak to face the world.
So, yeah, that's it. It has nothing to do with oh, you're a degenerate. It's that you're a coward who cannot face the ugliness of this world without chemicals.
All right, do the intro and get the show on the road, huh?
Welcome to Wheel of Dick, the Philip K. Dick podcast. I'm your host, Wah, here with my good friend, Foot. Say hi, Foot.
We love Dick. We are the ones.
I realized that, I never introduced you as a co-host. I'm just the host somehow in the intro, but, I didn't give you your correct title, which is co-host. You're just my friend.
You know, dude, I would prefer to be your friend than co-host.
I don't have many friends, so you're one of few.
Yeah, back at you. We're fucking losers. What are we doing? What are we doing this week? What are we reading?
We're reading is it The Day of Perky Pat or The Days of Perky Pat?
The Days.
It's The Days.
The Days of Perky Pat is actually kind of an important distinction, day versus days, given the theme of this story. This is all about the magical time of childhood or something about childhood and adulthood. So The Days of Perky Pat is way more poignant than The Day of Perky Pat.
Yeah.
So you want to summarize this one?
Yeah, I'll do the summary of this one because it's a simple one. I can keep it all in my brain.
I believe in you.
So in this story, we're in the Bay Area in a far-flung future, just another post-apocalyptic world. And the people live in an underground because there was a hydrogen war, probably a hydrogen bomb war, right?
That's what I figured, yeah.
And it's all shitty outside. And so they live down in tunnels. And the people spend their time playing a life simulation doll game centered around this young woman character called Perky Pat. And they spend all their time going up to the surface. Aliens, I guess, drop care packages off for them. And they give them supplies that you might need. And instead of using them for surviving, they take them apart and turn them into pieces to play The Sims with. And and then they hear of a town across the bay. Hey, in Oakland, they don't play with Perky Pat. They play with Connie Companion. And so then they decide to challenge them to a game of Perky Pat or Connie Companion. And the winner gets to keep the doll. And that's the story, basically.
Yeah, let me just clarify. The game itself that they're playing is a very, very detailed, intricate reconstruction of life prior to the war. So they have a little doll who's named Perky Pat, and we don't really understand the rules of the game, but it seems to revolve around progressing in life. And they have little models of her home, and she's trying to trade in one car for a nicer car, and they're actually building little intricate versions of these objects. So they have working garage door openers and moving little vehicles and all types of shit.
The intricacy of the game is the most fascinating part of this to me.
Yeah.
So what exactly do you imagine the point of this game to be? How do you win?
I want to know, I should look this up. Was Life the game already in existence when this story was written? Because this is...
Oh, it had to be, right?
Life, Milton Bradley, I think, is Life, yeah.
Dude, the game of Life goes back to 1860.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Holy shit. What?
1860.
Originally created in 1860 by Milton Bradley. Yeah. Jesus Christ. All right, well, we don't need to go into deep fucking board game lore here, but yeah, It
Yeah.
seemed like it was about like sort of about status because it does revolve around like trading money, and we learn later like all of these people are competing with each other. The couples all play as teams and they're competing, and the way that they're keeping score seems to involve around like who owes how many dollars to who. And they're using like old paper currency, which is fucking useless in like this post-apocalypse, except for like playing this game.
Well, it does seem like they use it for currency in the game, and the game has become so important to them that they use real money that they can actually use in real life.
Oh, I like reversed the order of that.
Yeah.
I was thinking that like the reason that they use money as currency at all for anything outside of the game is because they're all so obsessed with the game that that's why the currency has value.
Well, we never get a description of the kind of money. It could just be like you keep your Monopoly money, and Monopoly money has just become actual currency because you can use it in the game. Like, we don't
He
know.
called them greenbacks at one point.
That's true.
Yeah.
This is an interesting dynamic in the game. The game is tied up in like their remembrances of the before time. And so they're trying to like as accurately as they can like recreate life as it was inside of the game. And so the argument they're having is not necessarily just that like, oh, we're going to be at a disadvantage, but also like we're trying to have like the most historically accurate version of old times as possible.
That's true because they were also fighting about the mall and like the difference between supermarkets and like small markets, and she got like really emotional about that fight.
Yeah.
She's like, "That's wrong. That's not how it was."
Yeah, they're like, this is a thing that like you and I probably never experienced, but I guess like I listened to a Planet Money about it, about like how in old grocery stores you just like give the guy a list of the shit you wanted and then he would get it for you.
Yeah, he'd like run back there and grab the stuff.
Yeah, like you just wait in line, you give him your grocery list and he does it really fast and then you buy the shit. As opposed to like walking down the aisles and picking between like 25 different kinds of pasta sauce.
I guess that was like the beginning of the supermarket, right? It's like much more selection, but because it's so big, you got to do this shit yourself.
Yeah. Do you know which chain was the first one to be like that? To be a supermarket?
No.
It was Piggly Wiggly.
What the fuck is Piggly Wiggly?
It's like a southern chain of grocery stores.
I never even heard of that. It's called Piggly Wiggly. Is there a little pig on the sign?
Yeah. Yeah, it has a pig as the local guy. It's like a southern and midwestern chain. But anyways, they spend time arguing over it and they're trying to like give Perky Pat the most like accurate version of like suburban living possible.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of like dice or spinner element to this where you like roll a 12 and I guess you get to do 12 things or something.
Yeah, it seems like everyone has some sort of movement. Also, you can control like her boyfriend because they use some of their moves to like have Paul go do shit in addition to what Pat's gonna do.
Okay.
And it's like, great, like we got a 12. That means we can like move him from the garage to the car, and now he's gonna go and like get like this thing refinanced or like whatever the fuck they're doing.
Okay, so there is like the dice element, but there's also like an element of skill. Like some people are much better at this game than others.
Well, it seemed like, and this is actually kind of like what you were talking about before with wanting to get the accuracy right. That like a lot of the competition was like who can make better things for they call them layouts, like the layout of their house and it's not just the house, like it's the whole block. It's like the supermarket. Like I'm imagining like those huge train sets that like 60-year-old dudes had when we were growing up.
I was thinking of the same things, like the one in Beetlejuice.
Because it was kind of weird that like the skill of like making moves in the game seem also linked to like your ability to make cool shit for the layout.
I think it was like making cool shit, but it's also like imagining the life that Perky Pat could have. I don't really know how Dungeons and Dragons is played, but in my mind, being an imaginative person is rewarded in some way. And I thought something similar was going on here. Like you like imagine and taken the time to like imagine a real life for Perky Pat. And so she has like a much more like fulfilled existence.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
And that somehow wins you the game.
But I swear that there is a hard score related to money because when they go in, they compete with the guy and they talk about how they won. They like got cards and they're like, oh, like we owed 50,000, but then we got like this debt forgiveness card. And then the other guys, like they got more debt right then.
Yeah.
And then like blah, blah, blah. Like we rolled and we ended on this spot. And there was a bunch of stuff related to cash.
Yeah, it was kind of like the game of life mixed with Monopoly.
Yeah.
Like the card sounded like Monopoly.
Yeah. Like they landed just shy of like the go to jail spot.
Or like they landed on Community Chest and it was like get out of jail free or something, you know, like it was a good card.
I really liked the mysterious quality of flukiness that the guy described.
Oh
where
yeah,
it's like they're fucking
we like just talked about
We
this.
did?
Yeah, we were talking about role playing games where luck is a skill.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, we just talked about this. Yeah.
So they call them flukers in this world because everybody who survived the hydrogen bomb shit was like due to some ridiculous fluke of circumstance. Like you happen to be like in an underground bunker because of whatever or something. So they're all very lucky. And this one guy who decides to go compete against the other team from Oakland, he's like confident that he can beat them, not because he's going to be better at the game. Like he gets a sense right away that they're going to be better at the game than he is. But he's just like, they don't seem fluky to me. Like I don't think they're nearly as fluky as I am.
I'm the flukiest fluker.
Yeah. Get fluked
It's
on.
like in total, like I survived 9/11 because I just happened to forget my keys that morning shit.
Yeah, and he does win because of like flukiness in the end.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the funniest part. He's totally right.
And like from the first move too, like when they start, it's like their character looks way more advanced than his, and he's like, fuck. And then they like also get to start in a more advantageous position because their character is married. And then they roll a 4 and he rolls a 6.
So do you want to talk about that or do you want to talk about the kids?
Oh man.
Let's talk about the kids then. Let's talk about Connie. We have this like tension always between like what I care about in these stories and like what Dick is trying to say, and they're never the same thing.
Yeah, you like want to talk about the
And
stupid game, but like he's trying to make some grand statement about like age, like I don't know.
yeah, and like circumstance and nostalgia or something. But throughout this whole thing, there are the adults, and then there's like the children who were born without any knowledge of like a time before the war. And these kids are like Mad Maxian style survivors. Like they're out in the above, like making knives out of parts and like killing rabbits and shit. Like they're up there like living life. Like they're just like, yeah, it's life. Like all these people are like downstairs like wasting time when they could be up here like doing fun shit with us.
Yeah, like they love it.
Yeah, like they think the game is stupid, basically. They're like, what a waste of time that is to like waste all your time playing a board game when you could be like, just like being alive. I don't know what he's trying to say with this shit, but like clearly like the kids are some sort of like moral paragon of forward thinking or something. I think kind of like the way someone who like, is free from the trappings of social media, like looks at what people are doing like in their phones all the time and like thinks it's like pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Like that's how the kids sort of feel about the game is like it's really trivial, it's contrived. They don't have no understanding of like why the game is alluring. When for the adults, it's like away from the creature comforts that they used to experience, like the game is extremely pleasurable because it's like recapturing some of those things. But this would be true, I think. Like to remember something and have it be pleasurable would like make no like I don't think a child who hadn't experienced it could understand like how nice it was to like drive a car or something like and have air conditioning. They'd just be like, what do you mean the air is cold? Like the air is just the air.
Yeah. Do you ever think about like how you would fare on like a self-sustaining farm if you were to like cut out civilization and become a hermit?
Yeah. I'd probably be like happier, but I can't do it.
I want to escape society, and then once I've escaped, it's like I can't live like a normal simple life of just doing like the zen-like experience of pushing the plow, tilling the earth, like just, this is enough. Like I don't think it could be enough after having experienced the frenzy of activity that's like living in the city and being part of it all.
Oh, I know. Well, I have to say though, like I quit Instagram and I was like within a week, like so much
Well,
happier.
I don't know if that's quite the same. Maybe. I mean, I don't give a fuck about social media.
The times that I've experienced and had like the willpower and the drive to simplify my existence, it has been for the better. I just can't imagine doing it full bore.
For me, it's the ambition. I would be like, I'm not making enough of myself. Like my calling is to go back to civilization and do something that has value to other people. I guess like living on the farm would be like I'd be trying to solve my own anxiety that I have now, but in the end, it would feel like all trivial.
Yeah. Okay, so in my fantasy of doing this, I would probably like write the great American novel during my hiatus away from computers and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that I could do. That's a whole different story.
It's not just plowing the fields that I imagine. It's also writing the next version of Walden or something. Like
Would the pursuit of like writing the next American novel, like how do I say this? Would that be paramount in your mind, even though you focus on everything else too? But like, really, you're doing this to write the next great novel and be recognized?
yeah, 100%, right? That'd be the
Yeah.
point, wouldn't it? I think about this all the time, dude. I was listening to like Sorkin in an interview.
Hmm.
He talks about writing A Few Good Men, which is like one of my top 25 favorite movies, right?
Yeah.
He wrote the play and he's like, "Well, how did you write it?" He's like, "I was living in an apartment and I literally only had like $2, so I couldn't go do anything. And so I just wrote it. Just like had a typewriter and that's the only thing there was to do. So I wrote this play."
Yep.
And that was it. He wrote A Few Good Men. He wrote like You Can't Handle the Truth or whatever. He's just sitting. He's like, "Wouldn't it be cool if then Jessup says to him, 'You can't handle the truth'?" Because it's just that's how he's entertaining himself.
That's why DFW didn't have a television.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't too controlled. He was just like, if I have a TV, I won't accomplish anything. I have to not have access to that. I think if DFW lived in today's world, he wouldn't have written a fucking thing.
That's exactly it. I feel that way. Like I just am capable of fucking wasting a whole day, days upon days, a whole month to something as stupid as like phone games and Twitter.
Dude, it's been years, man. It's been years.
We were talking about all this because the adults in this story live in a post-apocalyptic world and still waste their lives on stupid games.
Yeah, because I think like the kids haven't been sort of like poisoned by, not even poisoned, like the world is poisonous. That's too much of a value judgment, but it's more like their value structure hasn't been built yet as to like how to get fulfillment. And so for them, fulfillment is, like exploring the world, doing all these physical things, like catching these creatures, Like I get the idea that the kids are like eating these ducats, the mutant cats, even though there's like food supplies back home. Like they prefer to eat the ducats because it's like fun to try different meats that they themselves have like captured.
Yeah.
The adults, they already grew up in civilization, so like they've already had their brains all formed around like society, and there's no escaping that. Or civilization, I should say. Their values are like already set in stone, or like what they need to do to be valuable. Whereas the kids like aren't yet, so they're not stuck playing this game.
And the kids, I don't know if it's like their values haven't been set, but it's also just like they don't know the pleasures either. And so like they're not corrupted by it.
So do you think that like the kids, if they were to be able to experience like a Big Mac and a Disney movie, that would be superior to them to like hunting and catching like the most elusive like fox mutant that they can never catch?
No, no, maybe you're right about the values thing. I imagine like the kids grow up and they like have completely rebuilt civilization like somehow magically. Like the kids would yearn for hunting and shit, right?
Yeah.
I think like nostalgia might just be like so overwhelmingly powerful that you just like yearn for whatever you had before.
Yeah, that's kind of the feeling I got in the story was like more tragic, that it wasn't like the adults were had some moral failing. It was more like they were just a prisoner to circumstance.
I thought it was kind of written like there was a moral failing.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the game is so stupid.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it is Perky Pat. Like that's fucking dumb.
Yeah, like it's really stupid. And I think because Dick is not into the trappings of the rat race, that he sees regular suburban existence as the game that everyone's playing, like even though they think it's real life.
Mm-hmm.
That like the game is just like how you and I live. And he's just like looking at like suburban existence and being like, isn't this just a stupid game? Like it is like this rat race chasing bullshit.
Yeah, I guess it's possible for him to like both judge the thing but also retain some like sympathy for the people caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had marked this passage, but I was thinking about like he has a real way of conveying like human vulnerability and tragedy through like shitty dialogue where someone like can't find the words
Yeah.
to say what they're feeling. So they say something that falls like utterly short of like all the sadness that's like inside of them.
Yeah. This one felt more tragic than some of the ones we've read. Like this one really was quite sad.
Yeah.
The wife I found particularly like sympathetic.
Yeah, she's like, we gotta go do this thing, and he's like, why? It's like, I don't know, like I don't know, let's just go. Like, there's a line in Blade Runner, or rather Electric Sheep, where he's like describing to the woman who works at what do you call the big electronics manufacturer in that story? he's like describing the price of an animal to her, like what it would cost to like buy a real one of these, and she like doesn't give a shit at all, and she's like already moved on to a different topic, and he's like fumbling through the pages, like pointing at the page, like trying to like prove it to her how expensive it is, and it's just like so sad because it's like his whole fucking world is this like little like the rat race of how much this costs or that costs, and she like isn't listening, and like I don't know, I just got super choked up when I read it,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that's like one of his strengths.
I'm struck by that, and then also like Man in the High Castle, particularly around people struggling with money,
Mm-hmm.
is something that like Dick writes well. Like I think there is this way in which he feels like, yeah, I can relate to this. It's like when you look at society and like you think it's pretty stupid, right? But you're also like pretty shitty at it.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I'm pretty broke right now. And that makes me very, very sad. And at the same time, I also recognize that like on a long enough timeline, the survival rate of everyone drops to 0. And so like who gives a shit how much money we all have at the end of the game?
Mm-hmm.
But it's still sad because there also is like a moral failing in having no money.
Is there?
Well, I think the men in these, like their failure to provide is kind of a moral failing.
Yeah. I feel like there's a moral failing, at least in my family. I feel like I was brought up. It doesn't matter how much money you make as long as you're not a burden on people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have a car right now. Like, I bike everywhere, and which is fine with me. I'm not at all embarrassed that like I don't have a car. But like whenever like someone offers me a ride, or I feel like I need to ask for a ride, everyone's like, "Hey, we're going to Carrie's place. We're going at this time. It's gonna be a great party." And I'm like, "Hey, can I like catch a ride with you?" I feel like super shitty about it.
Yeah.
Like even though I know it's like no problem for them, but I feel like it's this huge imposition, and like I'm complicating everyone's life with my stupid shit because I'm so broke I can't provide, you know. And I'm sure like being like that as a father, like being unable to provide the things for your family was like that, but times 1,000.
I don't know, that always strikes me in these stories. And in this one, like all of their needs are met, right? By the aliens.
Yeah, I think their needs are totally met.
Yeah, their needs are totally met, but there is like something about like ambition in this one. That's like why they go.
They need like something to do. This is actually like a really poorly written section when his wife says something like, "You know, the emptiness that we feel." She like spells it out. Maybe that emptiness would be addressed like if we were to go do this arbitrary thing of like discovering what this other Perky Pat like character is like over in Oakland.
Yeah. The wife and him are talking about going to go play the other town in Connie Companion, and he's like, there's something about that Connie Companion doll that makes me uneasy. And she's like, what could it possibly be? I don't know. Jean said bitterly. It's because you know her layout is so much better than ours, and she's so much more than Perky Pat. Maybe that's it, Sam murmured. If you don't go, if you don't try to go make contact with them down at the Oakland Fluke Pit, someone else will. Someone with more ambitious will get ahead of you. Like Norman Shine. He's not afraid the way you are.
Yeah, that felt so brutal.
I was like, fuck. But like that's like the driving thing of these, like so many of the men in these stories is like being seen as like less than by your wife.
Yeah. There's always some shrewish wife to be like, such and such has a really nice car. Such and such has a con app downtown. Such and such has a robot butler. And he's just like, fuck, I'm not a man until I get that robot butler.
Yeah. That was the tropiest part of this one for sure. It's just the wife. It's always the same
Well,
thing.
there's a bunch of tropes.
Oh yeah, this was a cool story.
I want to talk about ambition a little bit. I don't know that I know that you hate taking it serious. I don't take it that serious. I feel like he's trying to say something, and I feel like it's just barely eluding me. But like, there's a reason that the parents have like regressed into a childlike state. It's beyond just like, oh, they're playing a stupid game because they're nostalgic for the past. Like they're acting like children, and the children are acting like adults. The adults talk like in a really childlike way. Like they like stomp their feet when they argue out the rules and stuff.
Well, and I thought they kind of like are applying like the angst of adulthood, which is like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like there's so much competition and like looking at someone else's plate and thinking yours isn't enough or whatever in adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And they're applying that to like a children's game. They have like adult level stakes, but at like a board game.
Bending, Norman Sheen picked up his Perky Pat doll and said sullenly, "I'm quitting." I don't want to play anymore. But distressed, his wife protested, but we've got Perky Pat all the way downtown in her new Ford hardtop convertible and parked with a dime in the meter. And she's shopped, and now she's in the analyst's office reading Fortune. We're way ahead of the Morrisons. It just feels like he's making this weird joke that's specifically about them like regressing.
That read to me like a criticism of life, of like, oh, we're so far ahead of somebody else. Like, who gives a shit?
The fact that they're like, their voices are raised and they're fighting and the kids are like annoyed. It's just like, God, they're fighting again. I feel like there was some weird statement about like age. And that to me all ties into like the final act where there's this weird, like, not like twist, but there's something about like, because Connie is becoming old and able to bear children in their version, that causes like this crew to freak the fuck out and like kick these people out.
Kind of like their maturity is linked with like the doll's maturity.
Yeah, like the parents have like regressed into this like teenage sort of life, and like the Oakland crew, who like their doll is older, like they're like hard and like mature, and all of their interactions just read like this big age difference.
Okay, so we have to talk about then, if we're talking about the maturity of Connie, we got to talk about Connie.
Yeah, let's talk about Connie.
So Connie, the other doll's name is Connie Companion, right?
Yeah.
And she's older than Perky Pat. So in their version of the game, Pat is on like the verge of like college. Like she's 17, 18, the college freshman age.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you know, she's not developed the way a woman is.
Yeah, they keep talking about her figure isn't as nearly as full.
And so she's a much fuller figured doll. And there is an element of competition between the two cities of like who makes the best props. Like the Connie Companion doll isn't poured into a mold. She's been like hand carved and she has like human hair.
Yeah.
But her clothes aren't as nice as Perky Pat's. Like they're machine sewed instead of hand sewed. So it's, you know, it ends up being kind of a wash. Like their doll is nicer, but our doll's clothes are nicer. It kind of ends up being like, you know, whatever.
I don't know if it was quite a wash. I mean, I would say like the clothes on the Perky Pat put them in the running.
Yeah.
But like they're still like 30 pounds under the weight class.
They're still playing from behind.
Definitely.
And with Connie's advanced age came certain like levels of maturity. So they're very concerned before they start the game because Connie lives with her boyfriend. Like they're married. They're not a boyfriend, but Connie's married.
Yeah.
And so she's like presumably like further ahead in life. So there's like an advantage. Like they don't have to like waste moves on having Paul come over first thing in the morning. Like they start in bed together. So I guess like they can just start their day.
Yeah, it was like they're gonna be able to have like way less movement spent on like doing stuff because it's sort of like a metaphor for like the efficiency of the married couple. Like they have like way better tax like policy or whatever.
Yeah. It's like she acts. That probably is a thing. Like they do their taxes together or some shit.
Yeah, it's not fair. They can do their taxes together.
It's so unfair. And there's this element where when they first see it, they're like kind of emotionally scandalized by it because like. Do you know that feeling of like when you're like 13, 14, 15 and kids are starting to do like more adult stuff that like you're not ready for?
Yeah.
That's kind of what this felt like to me.
It feels like they are the age of Connie.
Yeah, but like it's like the right time to mature, but it is still kind of frightening, right? Like I remember I had a girlfriend when I was like 14 and like she like told me like that she had like tried smoking weed. And like, I had made the decision not to do that, but I was kind of like a little bit intimidated by that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that she had like gone out and done stuff that like I wasn't ready and wasn't going to do.
Yeah.
And this kind of felt like that to me.
I feel like a lot of kids have this with their friends who like have friends have sex first and they're just like, cool, but also now I'm scared because it's like you're an adult more than me now.
Yeah, exactly.
This definitely felt like there was some weird commentary about age going on. And he said, this is Foster talking about the doll. And he's like, yeah, like they're married. It's a fact. Look, their clothes are in the same closet. He showed them the closet. And in the same bureau drawers. He showed them that too. And look in the bathroom. 2 toothbrushes, his and hers, in the same rack. So you can see we're not making it up. There was silence. Then Fran said in a choked voice, And if they're married, you mean they've been intimate? Wynn raised an eyebrow, then nodded. Sure, since they're married. Is there anything wrong with that? Well, Perky, Pat, and Leonard have never, Fran began, and then ceased. Like, it's like she knows, but she's too embarrassed to say, like, yeah, I don't know, it feels like they're young.
The other thing is this game is fucking high stakes. Like they're not just playing for money. They're playing for like it's like fucking Tokyo Drift. Like we're playing for pink slips.
Yeah.
Like the winner gets to take the other group's doll home and keep it forever.
Which is like so funny because like, are they even gonna play with it, or is it just like their trophy is just that they made someone else miserable by taking away their toy?
I don't know. Like maybe they would play with it. I don't know. Like maybe Perky Pat would have a neighbor.
I kind of liked this idea that like there were two different games that like probably worked with similar rules but not totally the same.
Did you ever change schools when you were a kid?
Oh yeah.
So like I was like a guy who played like a lot of playground games. And when I moved out to the West Coast, like people played the same games but like totally differently.
They're like different rules.
Yeah, like oh, like you can't do kicksies on a serve in Foursquare.
Oh man, I don't remember.
Like, that's not allowed. There were weird like nicknames for things that you like were and weren't allowed to do, and like there were certain rules of the games. And there's like you enter an ecosystem that's totally different. Like it's weird because like stuff that you've like maximized for in like your version, like maybe like everyone can kind of do, but you take a new move to a new place and it's like completely OP, like because they've just never seen it before.
Yeah. Perky Pat, they had to make a whole new sort of rule set where like they calculate like which the dolls would move between both boards.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there was something about like different squares on the board did different things, and Perky Pat was like jumping between her layout and their layout, and like on their board, like this particular square was like the fuck you go to jail square, but on her board it was like a good square, and it was the last move, and they like landed on the good square, and those guys were like, what, that square is like supposed to fucking destroy your credit rating, and she's like, no, and ours like it's, you know, you refi and like blah blah blah, and like I don't know. One.
Oh god.
So I wanted to revisit our discussion of like preoccupations, because like a preoccupation is different than like a recurring theme, right? Like a recurring theme is like artificial intelligence, paranoia, blah blah blah. But like preoccupations are like little things that like inexplicably keep coming back. And like one of them is little things. Like what the fuck is with him and little objects?
Oh, like the miniature worlds.
Yeah, the little miniature worlds.
Yeah, the preoccupations, like buxom secretaries.
Yeah.
And like miniature worlds, like cats.
Specifically mutant cats and dogs. Also dust, that they make nests out of things in the dust. He doesn't talk about the nests here.
Oh, but you know those doe cats are making nests.
Yeah, those doe cats are fucking slobbering up some nests, because he talks about like the weird thick sediment everywhere. I just want to know like where this came from. Like, was he just a little kid and like he saw like a little train set at a like particular moment and that just got stuck in his brain forever?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as clear as like what if Mr. Coffee was Mr. Coffee?
Yeah, I don't know what the fucking origin of this one was. My dad was telling me a while back that at UC Berkeley, when you used to head down to the computer lab in the basement of some building, someone had like scrawled in like paint or something on the wall, like "Welcome to the pit."
Oh.
And then there's this part where they're like talking about like the giant pit like inside Berkeley, and that it was like where the campus used to be. And I was just like, dude, what if like that sign had been there since PKD was at Berkeley, and like that was what he was thinking about?
It probably was. The fluke pit.
Yeah, the fluke pit. Oh yeah, I had a question. So the Martians in this story, did you think that we had gone to war with the Martians and they had won, or did you think that like we had just blown each other up and then they were just like trying to help for like humanitarian reasons?
I thought at first that it was civil war, but for some reason I did think it was the Martians that had won the war.
They had blown us up.
Yeah.
It's like they extracted all our resources, but they're like, well, there's no reason to let them die. Let's just like keep feeding them.
Yeah.
There's a sense that like they give a shit like, about us. Oh man, it's like such a great sentence where he's talking about their qualities. it would be fun to see that, see the reaction of the eight-legged Martian creatures who had so much charity inside their warty bodies, the cephalopodic univalve mollusk-like organisms who had voluntarily taken upon themselves to supply succor to the waning remnants of the human race.
Actually, this part makes me think that like the humans blew themselves up and they just showed up.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like the humans blew themselves up, and then these like Mars just like saw all these little pockmark explosions on distant Earth and was like, "What's going on over there? Like, seems like they need some help."
What's going on? They blow themselves up.
They also like can't communicate with us. It's like, oh, you guys are here. Do you want some flour or some salt?
Well, I also thought it was kind of like one of those things where I wasn't even sure if they were right because they're sending care packages or whatever, but like they don't know what they're using all the shit for. Like they're like, here, have a radio, and
yeah, he mentions that, like they'll be angry,
but they're like, wouldn't they be pissed if they knew what we were doing with this? It's like they have no contact with them whatsoever. It's just like they just saw they were blowing each other up, and then they started just like giving them food.
Yeah, and he says something about, oh right there, the next paragraph. It's like there was almost no communication between humans and care boys. Care boys are the Martians. They were too different. Acts, deeds could be done, conveying something, but not mere words, not mere signs. So it's like we're too different to really communicate that effectively. So all they can do is like send stuff that they think will be like maybe of help, and that's it. Like maybe that's why they're sending radios.
Yeah, I was the other. He's like, use this radio to talk to us.
I thought it was like they were expecting us to rebuild civilization, and they're just like, why aren't they building yet? Like we keep sending them all these like we sent them computers, we sent them radios to like communicate with each other, and like they're just in their little holes. Like what are they doing in there?
Yeah, like we give you all the shit you need to rebuild, and you just live in your tunnels and don't ever come out. Like, and clearly, like the surface is fine, right? Like,
I mean, it's not fine. There was that one dude who died of radiation exposure from trying to build his house.
Okay.
But it seems like enough of the human race is like impervious to the radiation. Like, what's his fuck seems to think he is the main character, Norm.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it seems like they could be doing something, but instead they're just like wasting their time on frivolous activities.
Oh, it's the dust that's radioactive. That's why he wears the anti-dust suit.
Oh yeah. Oh, and he asked them, like, why don't you take a giant rag and wipe down the dust?
Yeah, so the dust is poison still.
I thought that this story was going to be some sort of, like, commentary on, like, the welfare state. Because it's like, oh, you have all the things that you need, and, like, see how, like, your life really sucks if, like, all your things are provided for you or some bullshit like that. So did you have, like, any thoughts on what the fuck happens at the end here? Like, why do they freak out at the knowledge that the Connie doll has, like, is having a baby?
Okay, we should explain that. So they win the Connie doll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like they show the group, they're like, look at this Connie, and everyone's like, oh my god, like she's so buxom or whatever, she's so shapely. And they're like, yeah, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then like another person picks her up and he's like, be careful with her. And then it's like, why? And he's like, she's pregnant.
Such a weird
and
line.
So then they, you know, they're like, we're being serious, and like they're like, here, like they have like little fetus doll like ready to go, and I think it's like an attachment, like there's like a belly attachment. They're like, she's only 3 months pregnant right now, but later she's gonna be like legit pregnant. So they have like a third trimester belly ready for her with a fetus inside. And so then like the mayor of the town that they came from, he like comes out and he's like, you guys can't live with us anymore. Like you have to go. And they're like, why? And he's like, you're like different now. Like the outside world has changed you. And so they're like cast out of their community.
Not only does he say like you guys have to go, the group all picks up rocks as if they're going to stone them. And then they're like forced out. I read it like that there was a little baby figure that was already prepared in a little pouch for like after Connie gives birth, there's gonna be like a new character introduced to the game.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, there's also the little like third trimester belly with like a little visible fetus or something.
Oh, okay.
And it was like only when they were shocked by the baby, but then they became like terrified and offended when they started like showing like the fetus. It was almost like he's like spreading like the doll's legs open. He's like, look inside, like you can see the baby or something. Like there was something like profane about it, and they reacted like violently in that moment.
I thought it was more like they were like reacting to like religious heresy.
Well, I think it's sort of related. Like, I felt like
Yeah.
it was the same fear from when they learn about the marriage in the earlier scene that Norm had and Fran. It's like
Yeah.
this kind of like teenage, like, that's too much. I don't, like, I'm afraid to hear more about that. So right when he started like showing the fetus, now we're getting on to like real like bodily function, like serious adult. There's something more intimate about the fetus when compared to like just the baby figure, because babies are cute. Like, fetuses are like the natural consequence of fucking,
I thought it was the fear, but like our characters that go to the Berkeley Fluke Pit kind of get like handheld into it. Not handheld, but like they get it like bit by bit.
Mm-hmm.
That like Connie's older and more like this is possible in the boundaries of the game.
Yeah. How you can like be led like step by step into something, but like if you try to jump someone in like 3 steps ahead, they'll like buck.
It'd be like if like you went off and like you found out about like Jesus's son or something or daughter or something. You're like, this is also part of our religion. Like people would lose their fucking minds.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Like Jesus was fucking and they're like, we can't have that, but like you'd be like, no, but like I went back in time and I met him and like I met him and his wife and like he was super cool, exactly like we said, but also there's this other piece of information about him. And then like your town would lose its fucking mind, right?
Yeah. It seems like that would be stronger if it was also Perky Pat. Like they also played Perky Pat, but theirs was like older.
I got the feeling that Perky Pat had been in like stasis, not aging, and the Connie group had been aging.
Mm-hmm. Well, he talks about that explicitly at the end.
Yeah, like they were choosing to like keep theirs in the same path, like never maturing. I don't know.
It's curious that like these adults who are playing this game, which is supposed to like help make them nostalgic for the before time, have picked out characters that are like teenagers as opposed to like more like their age, right? Because like when these adults were like in the before time, they were like, it sounds like they were in their 30s. Like a lot of them had kids who died.
Were they in their 30s?
Yeah, because they're fantasizing about psychoing out, like going to see the therapist, and I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
One of them did describe like their previous kids that they had, so I felt like they were older.
Okay.
So like if the thing was 10, 15 years ago, they wouldn't have been teenagers when it happened.
Yeah. Maybe that's because like that's the time you like yearn for.
It's like the ultimate nostalgia.
Yeah. Maybe they're worried because we know the Civil War or whatever happens in like 1980 and your game is set in 1975. If Perky Pat ages 5 years, then like her life's gonna end. You can't accurately recreate past the date of Judgment Day.
Maybe that's what it is. I feel like there's something about sex and maturity that like freaks them out. It was specifically having the child.
It's like the changing though.
Yeah, like the idea that the world changes for Pat is too frightening.
They don't want to mature. Like they want Pat to stay exactly the same because like they're trying to recreate that for themselves or something. I don't know. What he says like directly is like the Oaklanders with Connie are like learning to like evolve or whatever. And like our group isn't doing that. But we see nothing to make us think that. It's not like the Oaklanders are not wasting their time on the stupid game. Like they take it just as seriously. So I don't know what he's basing that shit on.
Well, the Oaklanders are very different though. They have like this really cold professional tone. Being in Oakland just makes you hard, I guess, but like I don't know.
That's just the stereotype.
When the guy first shows up from Oakland and he like pulls the doll out of like a combination locked case, and they have like this flat board that like carries the layout, whereas like they brought their shit on like a shitty wheelbarrow.
That cracked me up. It was like it was like the nuclear football.
I think it's like if you were as a kid, like if you like go to your first Magic tournament and the dude shows up with this fucking awesome like deck protector and like play mat and all this shit, and yours is like rubber banded in like a Ziploc bag. You're like, oh no.
Like I'm way out of my depth here. Yeah, I don't have a lot of insight into this style of gaming.
I never really played Magic, not as a kid at least.
The one shit I was thinking of was like I didn't play this, but I saw it at like Neutral Grounds, like Warhammer and shit.
Oh yeah, Warhammer always looked fucking cool to me. Like, I bought a few as a kid, but I never learned how to play, and I didn't have the money for it. Like, I would probably play that shit now.
I mean, I'm sure it's fun. There's just some things in this world that aren't for me.
No, I can't imagine you sitting down for like 8 hours to play a board game. It's not the time though. It's the subject matter. It's not. It's too neckbeardy for you. It's like not cool enough.
No, it's definitely not. I'm just like, ugh, no thanks. It's like the investment in like having to learn so many fucking rules that I never want to do. It's like, ugh, can't we just start playing?
Yep.
That's a major barrier to entry for me.
Same with Magic. That's actually why I don't like Magic. Magic, you have to learn so many fucking cards. There's a huge backlog of cards. I've played Magic at a few parties with friends who like to do like these draft parties. And it's like you spend all this time like looking at your deck and planning out your thing, but you have like no insight into like what other people are doing or making until you sit down and play them. So it feels like this kind of like rock, paper, scissors, like randomness where it's like, all right, so my deck is built off of like doing X, but like your deck happens to do Y, which makes my X impossible. Or vice versa. And so it feels like kind of stupid sometimes.
Is it as stupid as showing up and Connie's already married to her husband?
Yeah, it's like so unfair.
So unfair.
But they don't have flukiness, so they fucking lose.
Do you believe in flukiness?
Absolutely.
You believe in luck?
I do. I don't think that luck is a supernatural thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think individual people have different luck. Like some people have good luck and other people have bad luck. And bad luck is probably like a bunch of like subconscious behaviors or traits that make someone like end up with the short end of the stick often. Probably a bunch of other things, you know?
Yeah, the people I know who I think of as like pretty lucky are people that like have a very good understanding of like risk reward.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like highly tolerant of certain kind of risks that I'm not tolerant of.
Like what?
Like if I invest in this now and it doesn't pan out, like a lot of times it doesn't, but if I make like a really small investment that pays out huge and I make 50 of those, like it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because one will like overcome the cost of like all the rest. Making giant bets, you know, but like on like pretty small investments, right?
Yeah.
And like 1 out of like 100 times it pays out and then like they live off that.
I haven't experienced that, but there's like some Taoist idea that like if you kind of like give way to the world and stop trying to take control of everything, the world will like sort of like open up to you. Mm-hmm. That like things will go your way if you're willing to like relinquish control.
Yeah.
And I have definitely met people like that where it's like that person is just like keeps like counting on luck to get him out of jams, but it just like keeps fucking happening. And it's like, yeah, because like that person, like, I don't know, they've just gotten really good at like surfing rather than swimming. And they're just always like able to navigate and like spot opportunities, you know? So it seems like the opportunities are falling in their lap, but it's more like they're always putting themselves in a position where those opportunities will arrive. And they're also like ready to hear them when they do.
Yeah, I don't feel like my life is a series of like struggles and failures. Like the opposite of that though. Like for the most part, I feel like shit pretty much works out for me.
Do you think that you're fluky?
I might be. I don't know. I definitely feel like I kind of have the same confidence that he does in certain things. I'm like, I'm going to end up fine. Like I have that kind of like confidence about stuff.
Oh man, I do not have that. I have the opposite of that. I'm just like, if I don't take control, I'm going to get punished. There's a big fist hovering over me waiting.
My sister fucking hates that about me. She's like, you live in the light. I'm like, no, I don't. It's just like, really, it's just that like, I kind of wake up with like the confidence of like, well, bad stuff might happen, but like, I'll figure out a way to get out of it.
Yeah, I do know that feeling where like, because I don't have like a steady income, that like other people are just like, how the fuck do you live? Like, what if? And it's like, I don't know. It's just like works out often enough that I've learned to like to accept that it's going to work out. Like I'll be fine.
Yeah. It'll be fine. You know, like is my general feeling about stuff. Maybe that's flukiness. I don't know.
I never really had a strong sense of whether you were fluky or not fluky.
I definitely don't feel like I ever get punished for my mistakes.
My mom says I have bad luck. Didn't we talk about this when we talked about luck?
Yeah, we did. I was like, Jesus, Julia, that's savage.
It's like, you can't do this. You have the worst luck. You're always the one who will be caught. You're always the one, you know. If they're gonna like 100 people bum rush into the store and loot it, you're gonna be the one who the cop grabs and makes an example of, you know?
That's the thing. Like, I feel like the opposite of that. Like, I'm like, if we're all doing it, like, I'm not the one that's gonna face consequences.
I feel like there's nothing more to cover here.
No, I think we did it. I feel like we had a episode of the podcast.
We got back into it.
Yeah, we're trying our best.